Hi everybody, my name is Ian Hillway and we're talking about the Overkill Control Box today that I designed. I'm going to show you how to put this together. I'm going to show you all the parts that go into it and basically walk you through the whole thing. I decided that this could go a couple ways. I could try and take this and market it and make it a product and sell it to everybody. But I decided that I would much rather give it to everybody. So this is free for the world, unless you're a business and you want to sell it, in which case I do not grant you permission for that. This is for personal use only. You want to print these with one of these at home and put it together, go for it. You want to help your friends, that's fine. You want to start printing a bunch of these and selling them, that's not okay. If you want to design a product that's based on this, I do not give you permission to use anything that I've designed here. Now that that's out of the way, for most of you, this is going to be something that you're looking at to print at home on your 3D printer. Or maybe even order the parts from a service that does 3D printing for you so that you can assemble it at home. That is totally great. The whole point of this is to empower people to be able to have the kind of control that they need, whether it's for video games or for something else. I designed this version for video games, for Elite Dangerous specifically, because I needed a way to control my ship. This is the final version I'll put together. This, joystick in one hand, everyone's pretty familiar with that, but that's fairly limited. So with this, I also have a slider for my finger here that'll let me do forward and back and right and left, and vertical movement with my thumb. If you wanted to, you could also program it for a twisting motion or something else, but I don't have that button programmed for anything. The nice thing about this is this board in here and this board in here are here and here. These were originally designed to fit various things. This small one here was designed to fit a small prototyping board from Adafruit that fits inside of an Altoid mints tin. And this board here, this one, that all these keys are resting in, was originally designed to be the same size as a Let's Split keyboard. The box was originally built to accommodate that size piece. And at a certain point, I decided that that wasn't going to work, and I built my own custom support for my keys instead. But if you want to do something different, if you've got a different game that requires different controls, you can build a new board to fit in here. That can support whatever you need. Instead of supporting having a bunch of keys, it can have a bunch of toggle switches and buttons. You can put in, whatever kind of things you want. This is just the one that works for me for the game that I play. Maybe you do stuff with music and you want a bunch of keys. Maybe you don't. Maybe you want to just replace this with another key and have it be a full small keyboard, and you want to replace this with some toggle switches or something else. Maybe you want to put in a slider. You don't have to reinvent the whole wheel on this one. You just redesign the insert board that goes in either there or over here to do what you need, and that way you can have something that's more custom. So what are all the pieces that I have here? Let's talk about those. So the entire thing is run by a Teensy 3.6, which is just a little board that's programmable, that has a bunch of inputs for buttons and that are digital, and also it has some analog capabilities so that it can accommodate buttons, and it can accommodate analog joysticks, and all kinds of things. And that fits in here. If I go ahead and open this up, now I've already done some soldering on mine to put the pins in. You can order it with the pins already in place. When you order it with the pins, you'll notice it only comes with this outer row of pins. For this project, that's all you're going to need. That includes enough digital pins and enough analog pins that we can control everything on this box. So if you want to order the one that already has the pins pre-soldered on, that's just fine. Go ahead and do that. It's a little bit more money. If you know how to solder and you know how to solder in pins and you want to do that, go for it. You'll save a little bit, especially if you already have the stuff. But this basically just fits into here. It's designed to fit a little bit snugly, right? Everything in this kit is designed to fit snug. And you shouldn't need to do sanding or trimming or anything. I used, for the 3D printing, I have a MakerBot Replicator 2, which is kind of an older machine. It's using a 0.4 millimeter nozzle, and this is just PLA. So that's kind of the basic standard for any kind of 3D printer. So you may, if you're printing on something that's a higher specification than that, you have a smaller nozzle, your tolerances may be a little different and it may not go together as tightly. It may be too tight, I don't know. Also, your individual printer settings, if you have a different kind of printer, may affect things a little bit. So if you need to adjust the files a little bit or do a little bit of sanding, generally it spreads a little bit right where it meets the bed and at the corners. So you can either get an X-Acto knife and just trim the corners a little bit or the edges a little bit, or whatever if things aren't fitting well. But generally speaking, it should be snug, but things should fit. So the Teensy 3.6 just mounts in there like that. And then this mounts in to the support plate that holds it like this. And it's pretty snug. Nothing's going to fall out. And the whole reason I designed it this way is because I wanted to make sure that you could take this apart and put this together and make changes. As I was, prototyping and as I was designing, I'd find that I needed to change something. And once this is in, there's no way to grab it. And once all the top part is on and it's all closed up, like there's no way through there. So that's why this board is designed in two different pieces. I can push here and pop that through, and then I can pull this out, even when it's all put together. So if something goes wrong with the wiring or, who knows what, down the road, it's easy to get in and it's easy to fix. So the basic assembly instructions for this are that the board holding the Teensy fits into this plate here. And then that fits in underneath here. And generally, I find that if you get two parts in and you push it to the side and get a third in, and then run your fingers up towards that last corner, it'll pop into place. Sometimes it takes a little bit of force. And if you want to sand it a little bit, then that's fine. It might not be as snug if you sand. It might be prone to popping out easier. That's up to you. Do what you need to do to get it together. After I printed this main body part, you may notice it has some kind of scratchy bits all over it because my printer is not an amazing printer. It's kind of old. It's okay, and it leaves these little like sticky outy bits all over, little bits of extra plastic. And for this thing to fit together well, the parts where the surfaces come together, right? Every place where the two things fit needs to be pretty free of those, or it's going to get caught up. So I went through and I just kind of picked those off. You can cut them off with a knife. You can use a rotary tool. I have like a little spinning wheel with some plastic. It's like a plastic brush. And that tends to take those off pretty easily without eating through the plastic. It leaves these little spots that aren't completely pretty, but, whatever, that's okay. So there's a plate here on the bottom that has this little sticky outy part, which is for the joystick. This is a Figbox brand joystick, and all the specifications for this box were designed using this. Other brands look pretty similar. but the board might be a little bit different. The size might be different. The positioning might be a little bit different. So if you want to use a different joystick, you may need to adjust the mounts for this joystick. And that's what these are. These are the mounts for this joystick. So the bottom part comes in here like this, and there are little grooves there that it fits into, right at the bottom. And then there are also grooves up in here, little slits that the top part fits into. And I generally fit in the top part first. Now I can't do that yet because these pins are a problem. Because with this design, if I left these pins where they were, they would poke out the top. So one of the things that we'll be doing during the construction of this box is unsoldering all these pins and replacing them with pins that stick out the other side. And that'll let it all go together correctly. If I open up this one, I have just some rubber tape that I use on here so that it won't slip around on my desk while I'm using it. You can put little feet on here if you want to buy little rubber feet. If you're comfortable with nothing, you can have nothing on there. But like I said, right now this is pretty seamless. And there's no easy way in, which is why I designed it like that. So I can just push that in and pull this out. And then you can see, you know, all the parts there, the finished one. And you notice that this has, you know, some holes here. So I can reach through and I can use that to push this out. And you can see how now in here, the pins are coming out the other side. And this fits into the grooves there. And it also fits into these grooves here. So you want to make sure that when you're putting it in, you line it up with those grooves first, which can be a little tricky, and then it just pops into place. Okay, for this, you just line this up if you've taken it apart, hook it back together, and then push that in. And you end up with something that's nice and tidy looking, but is still fairly easy to take apart and put together because of how it's set up. So I'm going to show you where all the parts go first, and we'll go into detail as we put it all together a little bit more after that. So your joystick would go in here. I'm not going to do it yet because we need to move our pins because they're still coming out the wrong way. And then this plate goes on the back. There are, and they're really hard to see on here, in the model, there are little places in the corners where there's a little bit of extra plastic that's across that gap so that things won't just push down forever into the box, so that they'll slide into place and then they'll stop, right, and not go through. So if you try and put this in like too far down in the corner, you might go past that point, you might have trouble. So I've found the easiest way here is to start with a sharp tip and kind of come in there and then run your fingers, make sure it stays in the corner. Run your fingers to the corner there. And that also lines up with the little brackets that are going to hold on to your joystick. So you fit those into the joystick, fit that into the corner, and then push it in from there. Right? And that's your back. Those actually are going to be some of the last things that we put on because we're going to do all the wiring first. But for the purpose of this, I just want to make sure you know where everything goes. This holds all of our keys, and I have it set up to print upside down. That way, because we have some sticky outy bits here that hold the key, and that way we don't have any bridging problems. This whole thing is designed to be able to print in pieces without any supports or anything like that. So even if you're not an amazing expert at 3D printing, it should be something that you can do. Also, this printing upside down leaves our smooth side up, which is kind of nice. So all of the different keys, and I have a bag of keys here that I got, and these are just keyboard keys that I got from an online retailer. These are brown ones. I like the brown ones because the brown ones are designed to have a little bit of a pop when you push it in, but it's not a solid on-off. It's active through the whole range of it. There are other keys that don't have any resistance, and that don't have any pop, that don't do anything until they pop. But these have a nice feel. I recommend the brown ones. If you don't know anything about keys, just get the brown ones. If you do, get whatever kind you like the best. And this is just designed so that these just pop right into the board. Now these have a little like slot at one end where you can put in an LED. I'm not going to talk about wiring LEDs. I'm not using them for my purposes. If you want LEDs in your keys, you can do that, but you're going to have to figure out that all on your own. And but if we use that as a guide, that slit for the LED, that's the bottom of the key. So if you pop it in like that, right, they just pop into place. We'll go ahead and just pop these in. There's also this little stand here, and I'm going to look at this one to make sure that I get the alignment right. Yeah, and that aligns with the hole on the left, looking at it from the top. And this is going to hold your PSP slider, which is this. And you'll notice that there's only one way that these can line up with the hole. And we're going to have to cut off these little mounting loops in order for it to sit in there. For my finished version, I just used a piece of double-sided tape in there. If you want to use a little bit of hot glue or something, that's fine. I don't recommend super glue. The super glue tends to melt the plastic a little bit, at least with PLA. And so if you use super glue, you're going to have things are not looking as nice, and things may shift a little bit, and it may cause some problems for you. Do what works for you, but I would recommend just double-sided tape is pretty easy. And if you want more than that, if you want something that's more secure, then try hot glue. The problem with hot glue is that hot glue, solidifies pretty quickly at times. And the tip of your hot glue gun is going to be hot enough to actually melt the PLA, your 3D printed plastic of this. So you're going to want to be careful with it. But these pop in, pretty easily. And once you've got them all in, then we wire it up after that. And we're going to need to do some soldering on these. Regarding the PSP slider, this little thing, I've been looking into the possibility of upgrading that to a PS Vita mini joystick. It's also analog. And I believe it works on more of a rocking motion, more like a traditional joystick, but still has the analog. I've found that this has a pretty big, needs a pretty big dead zone in the center. And also, when it slides to the edges, it's unpredictable. Just exactly what the measurement you're going to get is. So when I did the software for this, and I'll talk about that later. When I did the software for this box, I set it up to have a pretty big dead zone automatically based on the programming. And as you move it, when you move it to the top and you move to the bottom and the left and the right, to calculate the maximum values that you're getting and calibrate it each time you do that. So when you start this up, when you plug it in, turn on your computer, whatever, you just move it in a circle, it self-calibrates. If you find that you start this thing up and you start playing a game and you're drifting, it might be just that you haven't done that yet, and your calibration is off center, I guess, because it's giving you a stronger input in one direction than another. And if you just move it in a circle really quickly, that tends to solve that. So this is how all your keys go in there, and then this just fits in the top right there. That's your top plate there. And then you've got the mini panel here, which is made out of 3 different parts. We've got a support on the bottom, and this just fits into this box here with a support at the bottom. It's got a little lip that it sits on. So this supports those little Accel buttons, these little things, and I just got these on Amazon. And the way that these work is the current flows from these two to these two. When you press, it completes the circuit, and it can go through either side. And this is designed actually to just use one side. So you can just take the pins on one side and just bend them back and forth, and they just pop right off. Right? And then you get it's pretty smooth on one side. You have the pins you need on the other side. Just remember, it's not flowing through from one side to the other. It's flowing through from one pin to the next when you push the button. Right? So this is just fine. This is not going to cause any problems for us. And when you look at our little mini plate here, these fit in here. And it's going to be snug. Like I said, everything's designed with pretty tight tolerances. So you may have to work it a little bit. And try different methods of popping it in before it really goes in snugly. But when it does, it's going to be really nice and firm in there. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those. And then we have our little mini 5-way switch, right? And that's going to go in this spot here. Now you notice when you look at the connectors, there are 2 that are closer together and 1 that's farther apart. The 2 that are closer together go towards the middle of the board. And there's just a little spot that fits in there. And just like these, it's a little bit snug. But once you get it, it pops into place and it holds it pretty firmly. This is going to be the trickiest part because we need to solder these in the board. The 5-way joystick we can actually solder first. And then pop it in and have the leads poke through. But these we're going to need to solder there. So you want to be careful. You can afford to melt your plastic around it a little bit. It's not a big deal if you do that. That's fine. So don't worry about that too much. But the way that this fits together is you've got this part on the bottom, and then this has holes, and that just pops in there. And then this part goes on top. I printed this one upside down also so that the shiny part can go up, the smooth part from your 3D printer. And it's also going to be pretty tight on the top, so it's going to pop into place. And when you do, you get this pretty solid little container for all your switches here that holds them all in place and fits right into here, just like that. And we're having a little issue on this corner here with it not wanting to go in. When all the keys are there, it holds its shape a little bit better. The joystick sticks out here, you know, with the thumb piece, right? That's I've already put it together, but and this is the top of the 5-way switch. It's just going to go on top like that. And that's pretty much it. There's one other piece that's really small, and that's here. And this is an important piece. What I found was with these little mini joysticks, when you stick this cap on and you use it a lot, it tends to go down farther and farther until it's like grinding on the joystick, and it really doesn't want to move very smoothly. So I designed this, and this is a little spacer. And it just fits right over the stem on this. And then once you've got it on there, you just push it down to the bottom. And then you put your cap on. And no matter how hard you press, that's going to keep it from going down and creating too much friction, so that everything's going to move smoothly. Like I said, once this is done, we'll solder some leads on there that poke down through there. We'll cut off these, and that just fits down on here, and it sticks in with double-sided tape. But that's the basics of how it all goes together.